On a quiet, sun-warmed street in Gwarimpa, Abuja, where the air carried the scent of blooming hibiscus and the occasional hum of passing keke nappies, two houses sat opposite each other, worlds apart despite the few feet of dusty road between them. On the left stood the house of the Ibrahims, a grand white duplex with high walls, gold-plated gate handles, and a gardener who trimmed the rose bushes like they were works of art. Everything sparkled, the floors, the windows, even the nameplate by the front door that read, Ibrahim and Sons Limited. Inside that home lived Faisal Ibrahim, the only son of Alhaji Ibrahim, a wealthy businessman who never needed to explain how his money was made. Faisal, tall and light-skinned, wore designer polo shirts and smelled of imported cologne. Every morning, the neighborhood children would watch him cruise out in his gleaming black SUV, music thumping, sunglasses on, even on cloudy days. At night, he was often seen at lounges and rooftop bars, his laughter echoing as he clinked glasses with friends who carried the same air of effortless confidence. To many, he was charming. To others, careless. Directly across from the Ibrahims, hidden behind a rusting gate and overgrown bougainvillea vines, stood the Okon family home. The bungalow was small and tired-looking. Its walls were cracked, the paint peeling off like sunburned skin. The roof had been patched in several places with mismatched sheets of old zinc, which rattled each time the wind blew too hard. That was where Ike Okon lived. Ike, 17, moved with a quiet determination. After school, she could always be found by a makeshift grill outside her gate, fanning flames over rows of roasting corn. Her hands were often smudged with charcoal, and her t-shirts always looked like they'd seen better days. But her eyes told a different story. They were sharp, focused, deep with something that couldn't be bought in the shops Faisal frequented, hunger, not just for food, but for change. Faisal had noticed her once. It was a lazy Friday afternoon, and he was with his friends, leaning against his SUV, scrolling through his phone. When Ike passed by with a basket of corn balanced on her head, he smirked and said loudly, "Hey, corn girl. Save one for your Oga O." His friends burst into laughter, slapping hands and nodding at the joke. Ike paused. She looked at him, not with anger, not with shame, but with a calm, quiet dignity. She gave a small, polite smile, nodded once, and walked on without a word. That smile, simple as it was, unnerved Faisal more than any insult ever could. He never called her that again. Because deep down, in a place even he didn't like to acknowledge, he knew there was something about her walk, her silence, her resilience, that felt stronger than all his father's money. Behind closed doors. What they didn't see, what no one cared to ask, was what Ike's life looked like before the sun even rose. Each morning, while the rest of the neighborhood still slept under the comfort of ceiling fans and cotton sheets, Ike was already awake by 4 a.m. The air was still, and the only sounds were the crickets outside and the wheezing cough of her mother in the next room. She moved quietly so as not to wake her siblings, two small boys with big eyes and constant hunger. She would boil water over a kerosene stove, using matches so worn she had to strike them twice. With that water, she washed her mother's clothes, soiled by illness, and set them on the line before the sun had even peeked through the sky. Then she'd move to the boys, gently waking them, brushing their hair, tying their shoelaces, even packing them half a wrap of momwa if she could find any leftover beans. She combed through every kobo she made from corn the day before to buy their notebooks. Sometimes, there wasn't enough, so she'd tear her own into two and give them the better half. Then, she would walk 5 kilometers to school, no transport fare, just dust and determination. Her slippers wore out often, but she still walked fast, with purpose, because she was never late. Not once. At school, Ike always sat in the front row, not out of pride, but because it helped her hear the teacher better. She took notes like her life depended on it, because, in many ways, it did. She didn't have a laptop. Not even a tablet. While others scrolled through PDFs, Ike would copy entire textbooks by hand, word for word, page after page. Her fingers would cramp from writing, but she never stopped. She studied in the shade of mango trees and under flickering bulbs when NEPA was kind enough to give light. She memorized formulas by candlelight. She revised chemistry equations while turning corn on her grill. She dreamed of molecules and scholarships and a future where her siblings didn't have to go to bed hungry. Meanwhile, across the road, Faisal's mornings looked very different. He usually woke up around 9 a.m., depending on how late the party went the night before. A steward brought his breakfast, toast, eggs, sometimes pancakes. His gym instructor came by thrice a week. He'd scroll through Instagram in his air-conditioned room, laugh at memes, and sometimes complain about how stressful school was. When it came to classes, Faisal picked and chose which ones he felt like attending. If a lecture didn't excite him or if the AC in the hall was broken, he simply stayed back. After all, his father had donated a building to the university, and his name was on a marble plaque outside the faculty hall. Most lecturers didn't dare call him out. Some even marked his attendance without him showing up. His assignments were often completed by someone else, an arrangement his father never questioned. At worst, he'd pay someone smarter to tutor him the night before an exam. While Ike measured success by survival, Faisal saw success as guaranteed, something waiting for him, not something to chase. 2 students. Same country. Same syllabus. But 2 completely different worlds. And still, only one of them was truly fighting for the life they wanted. 3 months later, something happened that shifted the air in that neighborhood. The Federal Merit Scholarship Board had just published its annual list. Only the top 50 students in the entire country were selected for full-ride university scholarships, housing, tuition, stipend, even travel abroad for internships. Faisal hadn't checked the list. He assumed someone would inform him if his name was there. Ike, on the other hand, had walked 30 minutes to the nearest cybercafe, paid with her last 100 naira, and stood in a queue of students all hungry for a future. The attendant typed slowly. Ike watched the screen like it was a lottery board. Her hands trembled. And there it was. Number 1, Ike Okun, FCT, Government Day School, Gorimpa, 98.6%. She froze. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The other students clapped. Someone said, "Not that corn girl way they read for under tree." Another whispered, "She deserves it die." Ike walked home in silence, tears clinging to her lashes, not of sadness, but of release. By evening, the news had reached everyone on the street. Some neighbors stood outside whispering, "Ike, that small girl. You mean the one always selling corn?" She beat all the rich children, including the Ibrahim boy. Faisal's mother was horrified. She rushed into her son's room, waving the printed list. Faisal, is this not the same Ike that lives across? What is your name doing missing from here? Faisal stared at the paper. He didn't say a word. For the first time in a long time, he didn't have a comeback. Deep inside, he knew. He remembered her walking past him, charcoal on her hands, algebra notes in her palm. He remembered the confidence in her eyes, not the arrogant kind, but the quiet and kind. He had laughed at her. And now, she had outrun him. A few weeks later, Ike stood on a grand stage at the National Merit Awards in Abuja. She wore a simple blue dress someone had donated to her. Her braids were neatly done, her face bare except for a little powder. She clutched the microphone with both hands as cameras flashed. This scholarship, she said, voice shaking, is not just for me. It's for every girl who sells roasted corn by the roadside and still dreams. For every student who doesn't have light at home but reads by candlelight. For every child that people look down on because they don't speak English with confidence, we are not lazy. We are just unseen. The hall erupted in applause. Even the president clapped. Somewhere in the crowd, Faisal stood. He had come with his father. And for the first time in his life, he clapped for someone who had everything he didn't. Discipline. Humility. Hunger. Fire. Years have passed. The street where Ike once sold corn still stands, though the potholes have grown deeper and the zinc on her old roof rustier. But Ike, she no longer walks that road, at least not physically. Today, Dr. Ike Okon is a biomedical engineer based in Ontario, Canada. She works at a leading research institute designing affordable, life-saving medical equipment for underfunded hospitals in sub-Saharan Africa. Ventilators that can run on low electricity. Infant incubators built from recycled materials. Mobile diagnostic tools that don't require Wi-Fi. She's spoken at international health summits. She's been featured in global journals. But her favorite moment was the day she mailed a shipment of 20 low-cost dialysis machines to a hospital in Calabar and wrote on the box, "For the patients my mother once sat beside." Because even now, living halfway across the world in a high-rise apartment with floor-to-ceiling glass windows, Ike still remembers. She remembers the smell of roasted corn, the weight of the basket on her head, the hiss of the fire, and the sting of humiliation wrapped in casual laughter. She sends money home every month, enough to put her brothers through school, and to hire a nurse for her mother, who now smiles more than she coughs. She's renovated the old family house, but kept one of the zinc patches on the roof. Just to remind herself, this is where you started. And Faisal now runs a modest logistics company in Abuja, a business he inherited through one of his father's political friends. The contracts are steady. The profits are decent. He lives in a nice estate, drives a used Benz, and still goes out on Friday nights, though the laughter doesn't ring as loud as it used to. Every so often, he comes across Ike's name. A headline. An interview clip. A friend forwarding her TEDx talk with the message, "Know your neighbor, right?" And when he sees her on his screen, poised and articulate in her white lab coat, he feels something tighten in his chest. Not jealousy. Not regret, exactly. But a quiet, gnawing awareness. He remembers standing outside that White House with his friends. He remembers the day he called her "con girl" like it was funny. But it isn't funny anymore. because now, she's a global changemaker. And he's just another man living off the memory of a father's favor. Ike ran a race he never even trained for. A race he never knew had started. And in that silent truth, he finally understands. Some people start life at the bottom of the mountain, barefoot, hungry, carrying others on their back, and still climb higher than those born at the top. Success is not always loud. Privilege is not always earned. And those who seem invisible today may someday change the world with the fire life gave them to survive.